Before we begin, please be advised that this show may contain some adult themes that may not be appropriate for all listeners. Use your discretion. Now, on to our show. Welcome to the Sip and Saga Society, where we cover histories, mysteries, and just any story worth telling. My name is Karina, and I am your host. Joining me today, we have Randy and Greg. Yay!
Hey.
Hey.
I am so excited to have everyone here. Christina is not with us. She is not well today. And I said, go, be free. But I am so excited that Greg and Randy got to join us today. And we send all the good wishes to Christina. But the theme for today on New Year's Day for 2026 is women and World War II, because we don't know much about women or World War II. So all of our stories will have that theme in some capacity. But before we go in that direction, we have to be drinking something. You need libations. So Randy, what are you drinking? What are you sipping today?
Well, today I'm feeling a little under the weather, so I have a giant Awala bottle of water and a Dr. Pepper for caffeination.
Mm. Okay, Greg, what are you sipping? I know it was cool.
Yeah,
Like I know the
well,
label looked cool.
I'm also a little under the weather, but that's not stopping me, you know? So
Wow, I
I'm
feel
still,
so called out right now,
I
Greg.
know.
no, no, no,
I'm just
no.
like,
I just,
okay.
Like,
you know,
should
it
I
may
go
be
get a
easier
glass of
for me
wine? Is
than for
that
you. Like, I think it's easier for me because it's just like, it was like a mild sinus thing, so it's not too bad. But I have this beer called the Cherry Thunderstorm that's like a chocolate stout, and it's got these cool roller derby girls on it. And that's from Martin House Brewing in Fort Worth, Texas.
That's so wild, Greg. You always have the best beer art.
I do judge it by like its label,
Oh
so
yeah, that's how
it
you
makes a
should judge things.
difference.
Yeah. I honestly, every time I've judged a book on the cover, I've been like, yeah, that was worth it. That was worth picking up based on cover alone.
I feel like I usually get wins on that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's not misses.
Mm-mm. But I made a rosé from old wine that I had and strawberries. A frose, if you will.
is
I
it good?
recommend, yeah,
It
actually it is
looks
good.
yummy,
Sounds
actually.
good.
It is actually really good. I just did, it's like a really pretty rosé that we didn't finish this weekend, and so I was like, I'm just gonna save this. I added a bunch of strawberries and then added a little bit of agave and just threw it in the blender.
Well, that sounds
Phenomenal.
good.
It is really good. I was like, I had been thinking about it. I kept seeing those little machines in the Mexican restaurants, and I was like, I need that. Okay, so this is a Little Sips episode, but we are doing a voice only version. But for the rest of the year, we will definitely be doing a Little Sips once a month with various levels of guests and numbers of stories. But for today, it's just the three of us, and Randy's gonna go first because I like consistency, Randy. And I'm like, this is what I'm used to now. This is what's happening.
Okay, well, I'm more than happy to go first. My focus this Little Sips episode is really about World War II and about a high Hitler and an even higher Germany. So let's take a little foray back in time to Germany, pre-World War II and throughout, and talk about drugs. Not in the way we did in school with the conversation of a pure race devoid of drug dependency, amongst other things. As it turns out, the Nazis were consuming copious amounts of performance enhancing drugs to fight the dreaded enemy of Fatigue. What drugs, you may ask? Well, that is a true plethora. Popular at that time were cocaine, morphine, heroin, methamphetamines, barbiturates, and opiates. All of them readily available to the masses. The ubiquity of substances was obvious. It was a tourist circuit for the brazen prior to World War II, and it faced very little regulation despite having laws and mandates to control the quantities. The police had a difficult time stopping the use of the illicit substances and, in many cases, partook themselves. Berlin seemed to be the epicenter for this, with one person writing, Berlin's name should be changed to the Whore of Babylon because so many outrageous and racy things were happening between World War One and World War Two in the city.
Randy, that is crazy. Like the whole time, I feel like my mouth has been open every time you've said something. What
That's pretty
is,
wild.
I am just, okay, because I've been hearing of the atrocities. I have been stressed. And all I'm
Hmm.
knowing now is that everyone was high. Everyone was
Everyone
messed
was
up on
high.
everything.
I think this
Absolutely.
explains where like German techno comes from, though. You know,
It makes so
like the
much
roots are
sense.
the roots are in this like wild party culture.
Okay, but also,
Yes.
you know how men are created, like people are created based on like what the mom is doing when she's pregnant, but also what like the dad is doing when the sperm is being made.
Yeah. Hmm.
So there's a lot of cocaine babies.
Yeah.
I'm not wrong.
I mean, as an aside, there's a lot of things that happened to babies after World War II. I mean, didn't they have that whole thing about like
Randy.
babies not being picked up in orphanages and them having all those
Yeah, the
attachment
amount of them. Okay,
issues
that
and
should
I
be
think
a
that's
little
later
sips.
in the Cold War.
oh,
That should be a
Like,
little
but I think
sips.
it's a little
that
bit
feels like it would
later.
have still happened, but yes.
It's like I think in the 60s or something. It's like not that long ago.
No, it is like there is so many fucked up science experiments. We should do that, little sips. Fucked up science experiments
Oh
because there's
God.
so many of them. So
Hmm.
many.
The
It's
first
so
one that comes to mind is the one I can't remember the name of it. It starts with a T, but it was stopped by the FDA from coming into the United States, but it wasn't stopped in the UK, and it caused the shortening of limbs. So like children would have no arms;
oh yeah,
they would
they
just
just
have
had
the
Oh.
a hand at their shoulder joint.
well it was
That one
that
was
was
for
this
nausea. That was
well
for
it was this
nausea.
well I'm talking more like science experiments that they did on like the ones where they just don't didn't hold the babies. Like what were they doing that for?
Oh,
I know there's reasons, but that one I and yeah, it was a special like nausea med that was giving these side effects of no limbs in children. It's so sad. Because it took people a long time to figure out what the problem was. And then the
mhm.
moms felt bad because they were like, I just was nauseous.
I don't think any of these
Wild.
moms felt bad after this. I
The
just don't think
nausea
they
moms?
knew after, you know what I mean? All of the
No, some
all
of
of the
them
women who
did.
were taking these
Yeah,
in
no, some
World
of
War
them
Two.
did. Well, not during World after. No, like during World War II, they were probably just like, I mean, they just come out without arms sometimes. Anyway, okay, go on, Randy. Go on.
Okay. Karina, there's just so much in this. It's gonna blow your mind. I can't wait.
I've
Okay.
been just ex my brain left a long time ago. I'm like, wow.
So I'm gonna start with a song from that time period that I found quite inspiring. Once, not so very long ago, sweet alcohol, that beast, brought warmth and sweetness to our lives, but then the price increased. And so cocaine and morphine, Berliners now select. Let lightning flashes rage outside. We snort and we inject. At dinner in the restaurant, the waiter brings the tin of Coke for us to feast upon. Forget whiskey and gin. Let drowsy morphine take its subcutaneous effect. Upon our nervous system, we snort and we inject. These medications aren't allowed. Of course, they're quite forbidden, but even such illicit treats are very seldom hidden. Euphoria awaits us, and though, as we suspect, our foes can't wait to shoot us down, we snort and we inject. And if we snort ourselves to death or into the asylum, our days are going downhill fast. How better to beguile 'em? Europe's a madhouse anyway, no need for genuflecting. The only way to paradise is snorting and injecting. The end. I really loved that.
Thank you for
Where did that
sharing
come
that.
from? That's
Yes.
crazy.
I know. Well, okay, so first I'm going to give a shout out to the book that this all, well, the majority of this started with, which is Blitzed by Norman Ohler. It was amazing, incredibly well researched. This is not even a worthy summary of the book, but he had found that as a popular song that was sung in Germany, uh, talking about like the traveling and the people who were coming to join in all of these adventures that the Berlin nightclub had to offer.
That's a lot of injecting adventures
I'm snorting.
That's
and
wild.
snorting. I like the little song. I
Just
was
like
really into
imagining
it.
everyone running around just being like, I'm gonna just inject some heroin, you know?
Hmm.
And people are like, let's
Normal,
sing a song
totally
about it because
like
this is so common.
so normal. Even though this was really well known and kind of all over the place, this didn't mean that the Nazis were okay with the idea of drug consumption. The war on drugs in America is actually an excellent parallel to the work of the Nazis, um, because drug addiction was seen as a mental affliction and drug activity was seen as a moral failing, predominantly afflicting undesirable people groups. So, really similarly with the injection of crack into Black neighborhoods and that war on drugs, cocaine became known as a Jewish degenerative drug, and addicts snorted it specifically. They snorted it in a powder form. That was the form that you can get addicted to. Weirdly enough, other forms of cocaine were excluded from judgment and weren't seen to be addictive. I don't understand those mental gymnastics, so don't ask me. I don't, I couldn't understand why they thought that that was fine.
I mean, I would assume it's
Interest,
just to create deviation. Like, isn't one version, like, isn't crack like the poor version of cocaine? Someone explain to me what the difference is.
I think the crack is like the rocks, right? Instead of the powder,
Right.
yes,
because you smoke.
Yeah, the powder
yes.
is the pure
The crack
form
is,
and the
Yeah.
crack
crack
is
is
the bad
meth.
form.
Crack is meth, I thought.
No,
No,
there's
I think
different
they're
Cocaine.
types of
different.
cocaine.
Yeah, there's like
Yeah.
crack cocaine and then there's like meth.
I don't know
You
See,
why
you
I
smoke,
know
I
gotta
think you
that.
clearly
smoke them the
see.
same way though.
Yeah, I think you do. I don't, but what
I've
I'm
never
think
been in a
what
position where
I'm
someone was like, "Here, would you like a crack rock to smoke?"
would you prefer
Like,
crack or powder? I don't know, but
Actually, I
I had
almost
people
phoned a
offer me
friend
all sorts of things,
for
but
guidance
never
on
like,
this.
"Here, do you want to do that?" I've never had anyone offer me meth.
I'm sorry.
I mean, if you'd like that experience, Greg, I'm sure we can.
No, I don't.
You
I really
I know where
don't
you
want
live.
to.
You
I've
could
just
find
never
that.
been in a situation where someone was like, "Hey, here's some
Neither
meth.
have
Do you
I.
want to do it?"
Well,
Yeah,
I brought
neither have
that up
I.
to say I just thought maybe the potential would be like, I don't get the powder. That doesn't make sense to me. But if they want to be like, well, that specific tax bracket uses this kind to blame them. But I'm like, that doesn't make sense because the powder is probably the more expensive stuff.
I just think it's wild that the Nazis had this like anti-Semitism thing, like Randy was saying, where it's like, oh, this became this like a Jewish thing. It's like,
Yeah,
why
specifically
that?
the powder. I don't
Hmm.
I
I
don't
feel like if
I
know.
you're
guess
gonna
it's
do it, you're
like in
gonna do
the
it.
United States with weed though, and how that was associated with like Hispanic and black people, and that's
Hmm.
why it was like outlawed and shit.
Yeah. I mean, the war on drugs, it looks the same everywhere, I guess. People trying to control people. So interestingly, after the Olympic Games in 1936, rumors circulated that American athletes were taking performance enhancing drugs thought to be amphetamines, that resulted in them being significantly better than the German athletes. Probably unsurprisingly to you, these athletes were in fact black. So Temler,
Yes. I was like, I bet they were people of color.
yeah,
Immediately
they were
knew
black.
it.
They were black.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
So there was a factory called Temler Factory, and they decided that they would make something to enhance performance and combat fatigue. So enter in a drug named Pervitin. Wait, you're gonna have to edit here. So enter in Pervitin, which was patented in October of 1937 and released in 1938. With items like coffee being rationed, Pervitin soon replaced the morning coffee grab. This pill became known as the people's drug and was sold in every pharmacy, on every corner. Everybody and their mother was taking it, and it was crystal meth.
So we're out of coffee. And what do I reach for?
Hmm. No,
The crystal meth.
they literally, the ads would say, take it in the morning for a bit of a what was
Like
it?
pick me
I
up.
forget how. Yeah, a pick me up. That's basically what they said. I can't remember the exact wording, but yeah, a bit of a buzz in the morning. So, for a group of people so focused on their own genetic superiority, they were flooded with addictive drugs intended to make them supermen. German chemists were very focused on finding new ways to push the capacity of German people. In the early 20th century, Rhine Valley became a chemical valley with players like Farben, Merck, and Knoll. The Temler factory, which is now abandoned, moved to Berlin in 1933 and became the drug lab of the Third Reich. There they started pumping out Provitin to meet the demand of the German people and soon the German army. So this medication first found its home in the heart of the people of Germany. And then once it was being used by doctors and students and generals, they decided, oh, this would be a really great way for us to keep our soldiers awake. Let's add it to the medical packs, um, and get it out to the soldiers on a dosing of like, no more than 4 pills a day, just to keep them awake and wired and going. I personally think it's a wild idea to think about cracked out soldiers running at you with guns and knives and absolutely none of the fear that God gave a baby, you know? Like,
None of the fear that God gave a baby.
it's
Too
insane
high
to
to
me. Can
feel
you?
anything.
I mean, I think
I
that's kind of terrifying,
It
It's
is
like,
you know?
actually the accounts of that time, like from those first Blitzkrieg attacks in the 1940s of the German soldiers unnerving their counterparts. Reading this now, I'm not surprised. If I saw people with just absolutely fixed and dilated pupils, like crazed, running at me, I would run away. I would absolutely run.
That'd be terrifying.
yeah, and they're not scared. I just think of those people that, the Miami people that are eating faces all the time. That's all I think about. They don't care about nothing.
Mm-hmm.
They're ready to go right now.
Exactly.
It's scary. Yeah.
So the Blitzkrieg attack of France in 1940 makes way more sense when you consider that the generals and the men were all under the influence of meth, which made their actions unpredictable. One of Hitler's top generals, Rommel, adapted quickly to this nimble attack strategy of taking meth and conquering as much as you could. And acting rather autonomously, he was known for pushing hard and forging ahead. He moved so quickly on Proviton that orders wouldn't even reach him because he would move on from his station not long after conquering. So they would be sending him messages. Don't leave that city. Don't take the next place. He was gone. That message got there 4 days too late. That man had forged on ahead. He pushed his people hard for almost 11 days. They thought he was just going to sweep all the way to the coast on meth, which, knowing that now, I kind of think he could have done it. I really kind of think he could have done it.
He said, I am going, you're coming, or I'm leaving without you. He's
Exactly. And he
going.
and he had a tank. He was just rolling.
I'm just imagining the zombies from 28 Days Later. You know how they're like the fast zombies and they're just like going
Yes.
like after people?
Yes.
Like that's what I'm imagining. And it's like terrifying.
Or like World War Z zombies. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
smart ones. So Pervitin's time in the sun may not have been long, but it had an unbelievable impact before regulation in 1941 and factory bombings in 1944, which pretty much ground to a screeching halt all production of the drug. Technically, 1939 saw prescription only restrictions, but those were very largely ignored, with some accounts of pharmacists selling hospital ampules of the stuff to be injected rather than orally ingested Provitin tablets. Additionally, it was readily available to a large percentage of doctors being addicted themselves. So they would write each other scripts, they would write their people scripts. They were very happy to provide access to the meth. Okay, go ahead, Karina.
So they were just like, you get one. You get a meth. You can have one. A meth for you. They were just Oprah with meth.
I feel like that's like the
Okay.
modern day, like the doctors with the
I mean,
opioids back
genuinely,
before
yeah.
they cracked down, when they were like, oh yeah, your back's hurting, like here's a bunch of fucking Vicodin.
I Greg, you bring up such a good point. I was genuinely disturbed reading this by how many parallels to things in the United States that I could draw from Nazis and World War II. Not that I wasn't aware that we were circling this particular part of history, but it was disheartening to say the least. Because, yes, that's exactly what I thought. And yes, Karina, you are exactly right. So, this is where my story part pretty much ends. And I'm going to hit you with some stats. Okay. And that's what I loved most about this book. He came in with some hard numbers. In 1923, an estimated 40% of Berlin doctors were themselves addicted to morphine. In 1928, in Berlin alone, 160 pounds of morphine and heroin were sold legally, while the industry processed just over 200 tons of opium. That is equivalent to 1/10 of the worldwide 2,000 tons legally processed of opium today. Okay, so like just imagine a tenth of what 7 billion, 8 billion people in the world take now. That was happening in 1928. That raw opium would be worth nearly $1 billion in today's market. 200 tons of raw opium would produce around 20 tons of morphine. This would equate to roughly 1 billion individual doses using a standard 20 milligram dose. Germany's population at that time was around 65 million, so that would average just under 16 doses per citizen for the year. And before you're like, oh, Randy, that's not so bad. 16 per citizen, like that seems reasonable. This was not the only drug they were consuming. Let's remember, this was just one of that plethora I read about earlier. So 16 vials is just too much. 16 doses is too much for you. You shouldn't have it.
Randy, you are doing the most. Just stop it.
I can't even begin to
Honestly, I
understand
forgot
the
about the other drugs.
thresholds of these
Mhm.
Germans. Like they're their levels of tolerance must have been so high. I can't even, it's no wonder. I mean, I'll talk about that later, but it's no wonder that in between 1940 and 1944, they had to just keep upping the amount that they were producing. So, Provitin, the packaged oral tablet of meth contained 3 milligrams of pure meth. Okay. In its prime, Temler Factory could press 833,000 tablets in a single day. Okay. So perhaps unsurprisingly to you, the Nazi army physiologist responsible for the medical kits for soldiers was Pervitin addicted himself. Ronke placed an order for 35 million tablets for the military in 1939, with 29 million delivered prior to the Poland campaign in September of 1939. Some estimates say that by the time that they did the same type of blitzkrieg attack in France in 1940, one individual unit, one group of the army consumed 30 million tablets alone. So at that time, they knew about the high possibility of addiction in 1939. With over 100 million users globally, meth is ranked #1 in illegal drug consumption today. Orally ingesting meth will take 15 to 20 minutes to kick in. Today's average dose of meth is somewhere around 0.2 grams or 200 milligrams, but the purity varies greatly, and for oral ingestion averages about 67%. So 67% purity for that 0.2 grams, whereas the Provitin had 100% purity at 3 milligrams. So the median daily consumption for today's users is around 0.35 grams. But again, that varies greatly by location and method of use. And before I go any further, can I just say that doing some of this research really threw my browser into a complete meltdown. It kept trying to get me to take counseling services, and it produced the addiction hotline multiple times. And I just wanted to know how much meth it takes to get you high the first time. Like, I feel like that's a Googleable question. It was not.
Google was like, "Are you okay, ma'am? Are you
Here,
okay?"
addiction services,
They're like,
addiction
we'll tell you,
services.
but like first you should know about these things.
You're gonna need
No, Greg,
this.
no,
Yeah.
I didn't find it. I was like,
It will not tell you.
I had to go, believe it or not, do you know where I found it? Most of these statistics I found in research papers because scientists were writing this down. Google didn't want me to find it. I was reading it in the paper by myself. Anyway, for
I feel
modern
like it's
doses,
not there for a reason, and somebody got in trouble. Like a child
yeah,
got
I don't know.
yeah.
something happen.
So I've read a Reddit post like back in the day that was about someone talking about like just the experience from like when you first like take that first hit and like everything that happens. And it sounds like you go down the rabbit hole from like the first hit, you know? Like
Mm-hmm.
I think when it hits a certain purity level, it's like if you take that like you're immediately like thrown into like I need this again kind of territory.
As a
Well, that's
person who read Crank by Ellen Hopkins when I was like in eighth grade, 100% that's what that book is like. Her whole life just goes to trash. And
was
she's
that
like, this is
age
just
I've
who I
never
am
appropriate,
read
now.
that. That
Karina?
sounds good
Nothing was
though.
age appropriate. My parents didn't read what I read. My dad was like, "Is that for school?" And I would go, "Mm-hmm." And then, yeah, nobody checked. I was busy running a household. Nobody cared what I was doing.
My mom got mad at me in seventh grade for reading Dracula, like the original like 1890s Bram Stoker Dracula, right?
Oh, that's the good one. I
I
mean,
know. No, it's
yeah.
great literature, but I was like getting in trouble in seventh grade for that because my mom was like, "Ooh, that's bad. That's evil. Like vampires are bad." So,
Greg, I did
Oh,
a class project on Interview with the Vampire in sixth grade. That was not, I shouldn't have read that as a
You should have
child.
read that
No,
in sixth
no.
grade.
No, and I did it
You
as
know,
a project and nobody said anything. I presented it. I did a little diorama of the main characters. Nobody cared. Nobody was like, why is a child reading this book? I read it recently and I was like,
no, it's way not appropriate for a child. I
nope.
will say this. I will say this. My experiences with reading were very, very different because of my upbringing, but my family was never the ones that were gatekeeping any of my books. It was entirely the school and the church trying to tell me what I could and couldn't read. And big shocker there. But gotta give it up to my parents. Well, not my parents, my family for that. Although I'm concerned, Karina, because I don't know. I think I could have gotten away with reading worse books. I should have tried harder.
Yeah, nobody checked. One time I checked out this book and I didn't know what it was. It just had like mermaid stuff on it. So I was like, cool. And the librarian was like, "Is this for your mom?" And I was like, "Sure." And I took it home and I was reading it and I was like, "This is erotica." I was like 14. You know what I mean? And I was
Yeah,
like, I don't, why did she ask me that? But I didn't like think that hard about it. And then I went home and I was like, oh my God, this is a sexy book. It was a long time ago.
an awakening.
It was a good book.
You finished it. You finished it.
What was the book though? I'm like, what sort of like
It was
mermaid
like
erotica is out
she
there?
needed to collect
Greg
pearls
needs
for a
details.
necklace, and every time
Well,
she
like, so I
came, she
remember in
received a
high school
pearl.
going, like, I remember in high school going from like the Interview with the Vampire, like Anne Rice, to reading like the Sleeping Beauty trilogy, which is her like bondage porn trilogy.
I read that one too. I own that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I
Yeah.
remember reading that, but I have not read like a mermaid erotica
Are you trying
thing.
to get it? Somebody recommended a cow erotica for the book club.
Please stop. Please stop.
I
I won't
said,
do
I'll read
that
it
month.
with you.
I won't do that month.
I didn't add it. Did you
I'm
see I
just telling
didn't?
you
I
very
feel like it's
clearly.
a little
I
too
love
much.
cows. I love cows. If I feel like the cows are being disrespected,
I am going to read that book of my own accord, Randy, and I will let you know what it's like. I was
report
not going to
back.
make anyone do that. I was
Report
going to
back.
do yeah, I'll do a reel. I'll send you a TikTok. But okay. All right,
Okay,
Randy,
yeah.
let's go back.
Okay.
Focus.
So, for a modern dose of meth, you would need about 65 Provitin tablets. Thinking, okay, that's fine. There's no way they were taking that many. Wrong. Some soldiers were reporting taking over 100 tablets a day. This allowed them to be awake for days on end with a constant stream of belief in their personal stamina. Between August 1941 and April 1945, recovered documents from 885 of those 1,300 some odd days show Hitler receiving 1,100 medication dispenses and nearly 800 injections. This amounts to 120 to 150 tablets and 8 to 10 injections every week. That is wild. For those non-medical people out there, injections traumatize your veins like really bad. You can get scar tissue, it can cause all kinds of problems. And if an injection site is used too frequently, you can cause tissue damage, you can cause infection. That is exactly what happened to Hitler. His personal physician noted that toward the end, like in 1944, 1945, his veins and his arms would crunch when he was trying to perform injections on him. Hitler's veins would crunch. Lovely.
Why would you
So,
tell us that?
because I had to read it and I couldn't
Ugh,
believe it.
I can't
All
believe
I
it.
kept thinking was the pivy, the pivy.
It's so unsettling. I'd be like, what is that noise? It's his veins again.
Well,
Mm.
so Hitler was addicted to multiple substances, including Eucadol, which is oxycodone, and cocaine. oftentimes receiving 4 times the normal medical dosing of Eucadol and multiple cocaine swabs a day. So remember, unlike those pesky Jewish powder people, we had to take it in a different form. So Hitler decided he was going to be swabbed in his nose or throat, and they would like make a wet mixture and put it on a syringe, and then his doctor would just swab him so that the cocaine would be on a mucous membrane and just go straight into his bloodstream.
How much money
Okay.
did they pay the guy to come up with that? He's like, we can't do it like everyone else. We have to do it different.
What's amazing to me is that Hitler didn't even ask for it. The doctor offered it. The doctor was like, "Here, you have 2 busted eardrums. Let's give you some cocaine," and then proceeded to do it for 75 days straight. And then when I'm just ad-libbing now because this part is just a really interesting part of the story. When Hitler was like, "I need more," that doctor, which wasn't his personal physician, who gave him all kinds of ridiculous things, but this other doctor who was giving him the cocaine was like, "No, I don't think that you should have any more. Like, I think you don't need it. You might be getting addicted." And Hitler was like, "No, no, no, give it to me." And he was like, "Okay, well, if you're gonna take it, I'll feel better if you get a full physical." This man, Hitler, had never was notorious for leaving in the middle of his physicals, or telling the doctors to shove it, that he was done with whatever they were poking and prodding. This man appeared naked in front of this doctor and was like, "Check what you need to check. And then as soon as you're done, give me the cocaine swab." Like, he was like, "I'm all business. Whatever you need in my addicted state, uh, I will come to you." Anyway, it was insane. It was insane. So, due to a demand for strong stimulants and stronger men, chemists pushed to find even better drugs for military use. In 1944, they ran some experiments. They created drugs D1 through 9, and they whipped up, I mean, D1 through 10, and they whipped up D9, which became their little pet drug. Not really sure how they chose it, but it was 5 milligrams of oxycodone, 5 milligrams of cocaine, and 3 milligrams of meth. The German Navy then tried it once. They only tried it one time during an air bombing, and they ended up losing 2/3 of their pilots because it had such disastrous effects that the pilots were just falling out of the sky. So, when they were unable to perform their proper medical trials, the Nazis then turned to concentration camps as their life-size labs and would dispense pills or put pervitin or meth or cocaine into chewing gum, and they would use it to punish the prisoners in the concentration camps. So, initially used pretty well, actually, as a stimulant for their soldiers to storm and seize, the drugs that permeated the Third Reich led to a stunning decline in health. Heil Hitler, right? Their use in later years didn't provide the advantage that Germans hoped for, and instead led to soldiers being heavily addicted. And actually, I want to clarify, Heil Hitler means health to Hitler. I'm not actually, I meant it sarcastically, okay? By 1945, Hitler was a shell of a human, and the lack of availability of any drugs caused severe withdrawal and depression. So he parted badly with his personal physician Morel, who had spent more time with him than nearly any other person. A physician that had been doping him with drugs, hormones, and steroids for years. Seriously, you need to read this book. Hitler's not a vegetarian, and I will stand by that. Anyway, let's end with a stunningly ironic quote from Hitler himself. "The higher a man rises, the more he has to be able to abstain. If a street sweeper is unwilling to sacrifice his tobacco or his beer, then I think, very well, my good man, That's precisely why you're a street sweeper and not one of those ruling personalities of the state. The end.
His veins were crunchy, and that says everything
Crunchy.
I need to know about that man.
Crunch.
Sick. I don't like it.
Anyway, the book was great, guys. You really should read it.
I've
Audiobook
thought
it.
about it. Thank you, Randy. I love that.
That sounds cool.
I really like that. That's like a whole lot of learning. A lot of places I didn't know. A lot of things I didn't know about. I didn't even know to know about. You know what I mean?
There's
Like,
so and there's so much more that I didn't even get to. There's so much more I didn't even get to. I just needed to focus on the meth. The meth and the coke.
I was like, Randy, how do women come into play? But I guess the lady is drugs.
I'm telling you, the lady is drugs. That was my. I love that you said that because that was actually my thinking.
I
But
I think it
but the
counts.
but the other thing is that even though this book, and no offense to Norman, love the name, but I just doubt so much that there wasn't a woman anywhere in any of this story. I doubt so much that a woman wasn't anywhere in any of this. His mistress, Eva, Hitler's mistress, she went to see the private physician as well. She was like on regular drugs, and like they were drugging all of the people that were closest to him so that they could get through an encounter with him. There's just no way that their women weren't involved more in that. I just find it so hard to believe.
I think it comes back to what Greg said a few episodes ago of men thinking anything that they quote like are over is an extension of them. But I think that's part of it too, is that a lot of men take claim for what women have done, and no, like nobody cares because it's like, ah, it's just a woman again. But it's Greg's wife. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
that's like
Mhm.
you are nothing more
Mhm.
than the man you belong to
Mhm.
in that time specifically.
I thought of the drugs as a mistress. That's really the way
They
I did it in
I
my
mean,
head.
it does have that energy, like it's that big secret nobody wants to talk about.
Yeah.
So were the women doing it too, or was it mostly
Oh,
just the men?
everyone. No,
Everyone.
everyone was doing it. Mothers were doing it. Pregnant women were doing it. Children, I'm not even joking. Children were doing it. Like it was
Those are
it was
they
just
have all the
everywhere.
energy. What do they need cocaine for?
No meth.
I can't even imagine
Oh,
as a parent being like,
I'm
to my
sorry,
kids
Randy.
being
You're
like,
right.
here, what you really need is some cocaine right now.
I cannot imagine coming up to a 2-year-old and being like, you know how you have that endless energy
I
and are
cannot.
chaotic? You want a Coke? Like, you want a
And they
bunch of
threw in the
cocaine?
barbiturates just to like mellow him out.
We what's that thing from Reno 911? The blues, this keeps me up, this keeps me down.
Oh yes. I know what you're talking about. I've seen that
Yes.
clip.
It cracks me up anyway.
This
That's wild.
one keeps me happy, and this one, something about voices, right?
Something about something
Anyway,
keep going
it's
around.
fine. It's
It's a
fine.
good.
But what I will say is, just before you start, Karina, I did watch 30 minutes of Allied propaganda, and there were some clips that if we were gonna like put it anywhere, I almost wanted to share with you guys because the way that they like depicted the Nazi soldiers and the regiments like as bumbling idiots toward the end, I'm like, that's that hella accurate. Actually, probably you got just crazy addicted soldiers running around.
I mean, but like they kept giving them drugs. Like,
Mhm.
what do they think
Mhm.
was going to happen?
Mhm.
But it's because they didn't have any of those posters that show like this is what they look like when they started drugs. It's been 6 months.
I
You
mean, they
know,
yes, no, I do.
there was no
They have
propaganda.
depictions of Hitler digging into his arm for bacterium
Mm.
with golden tweezers. Anyway, I'm really done.
That
There's just
sounds
so much in this book.
awful.
There's just so much that I'm gonna be stuck with from this.
I'm definitely gonna read that, and then gonna text you all about it and be like, Randy, really? Okay, so I did pick the topic of women and World War II because I wanted to see what women were doing in some of the most uncertain times in history. I think it's really easy to feel powerless when the whole world is on fire. And I was like, wow, this is also a time where I could look around and be like, I don't know how this is going to end, and I'm really scared, right? And that's how I feel a lot. And I really want to voice that for a lot of us, in that a lot of us are really scared, and it's hard to just sit in that sometimes. So I wanted to look for stories of strength and hope to like help us out right now. And now we know everyone was on meth, so we're already at a disadvantage. But I recently found out about these phenomenal young women and their hard work. So I found it so inspiring that I was like, okay, I have to share this story, so I'm going to make this the topic. But this story covers three girls, Hanny, Truce, and Freddie, during the Nazi invasion of the Netherlands. They occupied the country on May 10th, 1940. And these women started out as shy teenagers, but according to their family, they ended up becoming just like really brave women that would do everything they could to protect people and fight the Nazi regime. Truce and Freddie were sisters who had been raised by anti-capitalist parents who had been going to protest since they could remember. Their father left the family, but according to Tim Brady, the author of the book Three Ordinary Girls, which is one of my sources, he had never provided much to the family in terms of stability. He was a drinker and a womanizer who drained the family's finances. They felt real strongly about what a trash person the dad was. Freddie even sang him a French farewell song when he left the house. I was like, wow, Freddie.
I don't know
Yes,
why you said that name, and the first thing that came to mind was Five Nights at Freddy's, and I've never seen that movie. I've
I've never
never
seen that
seen it.
movie either. I Freddie was named after like a 5-year-old that stayed with them one time, and that 5-year-old died, so they were like, let's name him Freddie.
Wait, actually, in this book? No, Karina, you're joking me.
Why would I lie to you like that?
I don't know, but that seems quite unbelievable.
I'll Google it and I'll send it to you.
I'm just saying, I've never. Wow, that seems quite unbelievable. That must have
Well,
had quite an impression on them.
I mean, imagine they because growing up, we'll talk about this, like the family had people staying with them because during this time people were leaving
Oh
Germany,
yeah, of course.
so people were staying
That
there.
was the time of like what was it? Boarding rooms, like boarding houses, and like
Hmm.
you would just rent out a
A
room in
room,
your. Hmm.
and people would just come in the masses.
That's
There's
the
like a whole
wildest
family.
thing to me. That people would do that. They'd just be like, I have a big house, I have a bunch of rooms, and just people come into town, just random people, just rent a room.
I mean,
You
Airbnb is
know what?
kind of like that. I
It
mean,
is
people
kind of
just
like that.
rent a room.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I I think the part that makes it more wild to me though is that how were they background checking these people? You know, it was just like I like the look of you. You've got a good vibe.
Essentially, yeah.
I think you had to
Not
kind
a
of
great
judge
plan.
people at face value,
But also that was the
you
thing
know?
at this time. This time you had to trust what people were saying versus like now it's like I don't trust anybody. What does Google say? What does everybody else think about you?
Google won't answer my question, so you know,
Yeah, no,
Google
Google's worried about
Google's
Randy,
dead to
so
me.
they
Yeah.
won't tell you. Uh, so Freddie and Truce's mother, after the dad left, continued to keep them well informed about what was happening in Germany, while also bringing home anti-fascist refugees fleeing from Hitler's oppression. During this time, uh, Truce and Freddie's mom got pregnant with a random child, and they think it's from the refugees that were just kind of like hanging out. The sisters never told anybody about these refugees that would come and stay with them because they knew the dangers of snitching, especially when Germany invaded. This was also the time where people were snitching on other people and trying to get other people in trouble when they got mad at them. The family immediately burned all their left propaganda books, any pamphlets, any left wing, anything, just to get any evidence out of the room in case they were checked by the Nazi soldiers. Hanny Shaft was the friend of the sisters and also a university student who had dropped out because she refused to pledge loyalty to Germany, which I did not realize was a thing because I never thought, what happens when you get occupied by Germany? I was so sad researching this. I was telling Randy, I was like, why do so many men love World War II? And it is like such heartbreaking stuff. Like it is so, like, it doesn't get better. Like the more you learn, the more you're like, this is horrific. Like,
That's something I've never understood. Like I took a class in it in college, but I also like there are people who are like obsessed with it, and I never was that way. Like even I'm not really a fan of military history in general. Like when I teach the American Revolution, we don't talk much about the battles. It's about a lot of other things, you know?
I feel like a lot of that history is like, yes, the battles, but a lot of behind the scene rich people politics plays a big role in what's actually going on.
I think also
I mean, it's a
though,
combo, but
I think
mm.
also though, when you think about the point of view that most people have who are addicted to World War II, like I'm just thinking from the documentaries and stuff, they're, I don't like there's a lot of emotional context missing. You know what I mean? Like it's very,
You're, well, you know what? You're right. You're looking at it in a very logical way. It's in
yeah,
a very,
it's very like you're reading about something and there's distance between you and that subject matter,
Mhm.
right? I think the reason why people like us, Karina, can't handle so much of that is because there's too much empathy. Because the minute I start researching it, again, like what I said in mine, I was like imagining myself on the battlefield, scared shitless because
and
these,
high
yes,
and
we,
high.
yes, exactly. But in a lot of ways, people probably aren't as interested in that. They're more interested in like hearing about the tactical mind and the winning side of it, you know?
That's a deep dive we don't have time for today. But like, that's a lot of, why don't we? Why don't we look at this with feeling? Why do we do that? Weird. But what was the Nazi regime like, everyone? Harsh. And they did it slowly. They slowly integrated their policies. So at first they were like, I mean, you can be Jewish, but you have to say that you put the little things on, put the star on, do this. Now you're not allowed here. Now you have to put it in your building. And slowly they restricted the way that Jewish people were able to move around the world, and then they, start rounding people up. They completely controlled the economy and the government, and they continued to suppress the rights of the local people. They made Dutch civil servants sign Aryan attestations claiming that there was no Jewish blood among their grandparents. And I didn't realize that was a thing. I didn't realize you had to like pledge allegiance to them, like now you own us. And it made me so upset because at a certain point the royal family just leaves all of Germany, like all of the Netherlands, like the queen and her family leave. And because it's no longer safe for them to live there, they don't have control of the state anymore. And it's just like now you just live in this place where you don't know who's in charge and why they're here, or you've seen what they've been doing and now you're like, cool, now it's our turn. And I can't even imagine being in this situation. Like I cannot. And being
It's
like
hard to
14,
fathom.
it is. So Hanny, that was her resistance name. Her other name is Joanna, or they call her Jo a lot. She was a redhead, and her classmates bullied her every day because her hair was red. So she knew she stood out. She knew she looked like people knew what she looked like. Ginger. She was a bright student too, though, and she also was the only living child of her parents, Peter and Afsha. I don't know how to say any of these names. Their first daughter had died of diphtheria in 1927 when Jo was 7 years old. So they were super overprotective of her, with good reason. Her parents held very strong socialist views, and she decided to study law when she passed all of the requirements for entry at the University of Amsterdam. Hanny went to the Council of Resistance and asked to do more active work, even if weapons had to be involved. She was like, I'm ready to throw hands. I'm ready to do stuff. And there was a group of like 7 resistance workers in this area. Truce and Freddie worked as nurses during the day, and their aunt, who worked at the hospital and knew of their resistance work, introduced them to Hanny because Hanny was also interested in doing more resistance work. So they all met in this meeting room that the head nurse like put them in, and they were all like, guns drawn, like, I can't trust you. And then they were like, what the fuck are we doing? Like, there's no, who else wants to join the Netherlands resistance? And then they were all friends after that. After they threatened each other with violence, it worked out.
I was about to say that doesn't sound like a great recruitment tool.
They were the only girls in this area that were like doing resistance work.
But why were they fighting then?
I don't, because they didn't know who she was. They didn't know, they didn't trust her yet.
I mean,
And the
I guess
girl,
you
the
have to
two,
be cautious, but
you can't trust anybody. This time people are snitching on people that get mad at them. And they're like, well, they said, liberation things. They
doesn't
don't
that
love
normally
the
come with a
Nazis.
fascist government anyway?
Exactly. You can't trust nobody. They also thought she wasn't tough enough to make it. They thought she wouldn't last. So I guess they just overall didn't trust her. But she also, Hanny, taught the sisters German and English to help them in their missions. The girls started by doing smaller tasks for the underground resistance, like playing pranks along with other teenagers or distributing flyers. Like there was a day somebody was doing a speech, and right when he was going to talk, they all went with bicycle bells and were like, ding, ding, ding. Just like little stuff that was like, stick it to the man. Eventually, they started transporting Jewish children between safe houses in Amsterdam. The girls eventually became more active in their resistance when the leader showed up to their house in Harlem and offered them an opportunity to do more intense work. Then he started randomly testing them. Like one day he told her, "Okay, you're going to go kill this man." And then he like pulled a gun on her. Turns out it's like the guy's name is Franz and he just has Hanny and he's like, "You passed the test. You didn't snitch." And it's like, "What the Yeah, this is emotionally healthy for a 15-year-old girl. Like, what are you doing?"
Thank you for
Anyway,
reminding me of her age because I was thinking this was
I
a
think she's like
20-year-old woman.
17 or something.
Okay.
Like they're teens. Like they're not older women. I think Hanny is one of the oldest, but Truce and Freddie are like, I think Truce and Hanny are like 17, 19, and then Freddie is like 14. But they're not that old. Like they're super young. So eventually he trusts them and he gives them their first assignment. He shows them this SS officer who goes to a popular restaurant, and the plan is for Freddie and Truce to seduce him. Freddie and Truce are supposed to go to the cafe and look super seductive and wear makeup and high heels and like look attractive, so he wants to go with them to the woods. But they were still super young, so they had to practice wearing heels and practice getting their makeup done, and Franz would do the makeup for them to help them out. He ended up giving them $10, like 10 guilders, which is the money at that time, to spend on food in the cafe while they waited for the officer to show up. The guy never shows up, and then when the bill comes, it's 13 guilders and 80 cents. They were like, sorry, we only have $10. The waiter calls them dirty sluts, and then they just do the walk of shame out of the cafe. That was like their first attempt at doing seducing. They did end up having a lot of tasks during the resistance, including transporting weapons, forging documents, and sabotaging different people and different machines. Because one day, Truce blew up a freight train. They also, I know, she was like, it was one of my most memorable days. And I'm like, yeah, me too.
Just let me have this.
They got information from German soldiers to send to England to help in the war efforts. And like they did like everything they could to help make changes and fight the Nazi occupation. Eventually the war did end and but before that Hannie Schaft was caught by the Nazis because of her red hair, and that's how they recognized her, and they executed her on April 17th in 1945. She was 24 at that point. So it'd been early 20s for her. 18 days later, the Netherlands was liberated. It broke my heart. Freddie's son says it was hard for her to live with the fact that she got to live and Hanny didn't. Truce died in 2016 and Freddie died in 2018. And I got a lot of this information from a BBC video about it, as well as the book Three Ordinary Girls, the remarkable story of three Dutch teenagers who became spies, saboteurs, Nazi assassins, and World War II heroes. it by Tim Brady. It was a really, really good book. It is so dense. There's so much information in there, but I would really love to come back to this story again because they are so like inspiring and they were so young and they just were like, we can't stand back. And my favorite thing about Henny is that she was like, she was ready to kill. She showed up and was like, I'll take any weapon. Like, I will kill a man. I think there's a story that one of them tells where they saw a Nazi soldier beating a baby to death and she shot him. She shot him and said, I wasn't assigned to do that, but I needed to do that. And I'm not saying that violence is the answer, but there are some times where violence is the solution. And like they were young, but they were willing to do the right thing, and I found that really inspiring. Anyway, now I'm done. Go, Greg.
That's wild though, that she was just like, I had to shoot this person. Like, no one, I wasn't supposed to, but I had to.
I mean, but I understand why. Like, I would
Yeah.
shoot him.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure.
It's the only right thing to do. But
Yeah.
I want to read the book a little deeper. It was such a good book, and it was so, like, they're so inspiring, and they were so young. I'm
It
so
sounds
sad
really
now.
cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, those are like the very like deep personal stories that I don't always get, you know, um, just with the stuff I have to read. Um, But the thing that I brought was about the a group of women because we're looking at World War II, and it's about a group of women who were pilots on the United States side called the WASP. It was this program for women to fly as civilians in the military. So they weren't like officially soldiers, right? Because that was like too early for that, but they were civilians who did a lot of flying and did a lot of different things. And the reason I brought that in part was because one of the professors that I had when I was an undergrad at Texas Woman's University, that was like her research area. Like all of her dissertation research and everything was on these women, and she had gone and like gotten to know the women who served in this program and went to like their reunions and stuff and actually brought some of them to campus because they were women who essentially served in the military. Like they were later recognized as veterans and right. So like they were given all the rights of soldiers and benefits and stuff like that in like the 70s. So this is like 30 years after the war. I just thought it
You
was
know,
really interesting. Yeah, sorry,
oh,
Randy?
sorry. I was just gonna say, I find it really frustrating when you hear stuff like that. How many people came back from World War II, heroes that just had to go back to, an oppressed way of life. It's just
Mhm.
entirely infuriating. Truthfully, I'm just mad about it because that's so
Yeah.
unfair. 30 years? You waited 30 years?
Hmm. Well, a lot of these women, like, so whenever the program was closed, and then it was these women had been flying and doing all this stuff with airplanes, and then were basically told, like, go back into homes, right? Like you're done. You don't need to
Yeah,
do this
it's time for you
anymore.
to cook. That's
Um,
the,
so it's interesting because even though these women, they didn't like go to Europe and like fly planes in combat, they did basically everything but that. So they learned how to fly and did all sorts of jobs for the military as part of the civilian program, like fly planes from like base to base or to get them like from where they were manufactured to shipping them out to the front, right? Um, they did things like they served as instructors for the men who went like and learned how to fly. So like, imagine you're like an 18-year-old kid, you enlist, you join the military and you're like, okay, they're gonna make me fly a plane. I'm gonna fight in the war. And you go to flight school and a woman's your teacher, right? And she's like, I know how to fly better than you do. I'm gonna teach you how to fly an airplane. And then these kids are sent off to go like fight against methed out German pilots, apparently, you know. Um, and then they
all
did
too
like
accurate.
yeah. Well, and the craziest thing to me is that they often flew these dummy targets in artillery like for artillery training. So like the men who needed to learn how to like shoot anti-aircraft guns and like shoot planes out of the sky, they would do target practice, right? And so how do you shoot at a target in the air? You fly a plane and pull something behind you on like a rope, like a dummy target, like a balloon, and they shoot at it, right? So these women are flying airplanes with live artillery coming at them, right? Because these gunners are learning how to shoot these guns, and like sometimes they hit the plane and you crash and everything. And so 38 women over the course of the war died from just various accidents, like either test piloting a plane that had never been flown before, and so these women were also like experimental pilots. So they would like design a new airplane and they're like, okay, we need someone to fly it. And these women were in a program where they would test it. And like sometimes the plane worked, sometimes it didn't. Sometimes a part failed and it fell apart. So 38 women like in different accidents died like as part of this program.
Greg, that is blowing my mind right now. Ah,
And also, where is their memorial? Because what? 38? And we just have
Yeah,
never, I've heard the name, I think maybe once or twice in my life, and that's about it. And the other wasps I've heard of have nothing to do with World War II. So
right.
I
for target
hate how I've
practice,
never
these
heard of.
poor women. Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Yeah. So their main like base where they trained was in Texas. It was in a town called Sweetwater. So I think that there's a memorial now, and I think there's actually a museum. Like some of the sources I pulled were from like, you know, the um the Air and Space Museum has documentation on them, like the National Archives, like, like they're recognized now for like the things that they did. So there's, museums and exhibits and stuff like that in all the different places, um, for them. But like they train, like I think Texas is kind of like where they were based, but then they went out to all the other bases across the country. There's like I looked, I think it's 126 air bases, like in various places throughout the United States. And so these women were stationed and like serving in these roles in all these places. And so as you might imagine, it like typically to apply for something like this, you would have to be pretty wealthy and already have some knowledge of how to fly a plane. So like most of these women came from kind of like an upper middle class or rich background, to like have had the flight time to join the program because they made them they had to have a pilot's license already and 35 hours of flight time. So like that's a pretty decent amount. Like, you couldn't just sign up like because you decided you were like, oh, I want to join this program. I saw a poster in the post office and I'm a girl from a farming community in Kansas or something like that. It's like the origins of Superman, you know. You'd have to be pretty wealthy to join this program. So about 25,000 women across the country applied, which is like a pretty big number. And about 1,800 were accepted into the program, and about 1,100 finished the training to like actually join this program. So about 1,100 women were doing this. And they actually, like, most of them are white, but if you were wanting to dig deeper into stories, I was reading that there were two Chinese American women who served in this program, a woman named Hazel Ying Lee and another woman named Maggie Gee. There were two Hispanic women, Verneda Rodriguez and Frances Diaz, who served. There was one Native American woman named Ola Rexroth. um, so it's mostly white women who are like pretty wealthy, but there were a bunch of women who weren't white who were part of this. And as you might imagine, like those women were accepted, but all the black women who applied were rejected for this program. So it was still super, pretty racist. And, there was one woman who made it all she was trying to join the Tuskegee Airmen and like made it all the way to like the final round before she would be like entered into the program. And they literally told her to drop out because they were like, hey, like you're not going to pass this because of your race, like because you're black.
Wow. Why? Like why? Like you could have all the qualifications, but
But that's the time that people yearn for.
and that is concerning, Randy.
Yeah.
Another rabbit hole. They yearn for it. Ugh. Okay, Greg, go on.
So, the other thing I thought was really interesting is as test pilots, these women were often brought in to fly planes that men were too scared to fly because they were experimental or difficult to fly. So specifically, there's two planes that I found, the YP-59, which I didn't really like dig into like what that plane was, but then the B-29 Super Fortress, which is like this big bomber. Um, like early on, like test pilots were too scared to fly it. And so one of the generals like specifically reached out to the Wasps and recruited these women to fly it to like shame the men into being like, y'all are too scared to fly this that we had to bring women in to fly this plane because they were like that, like terrified that it would crash or there would be a problem. And these women did it, right? Like they were the first people to fly these
Of
planes.
course they did, because they're badass women. Like, if they
Exactly.
made it that far, they are certifiable badass. There's so many ways to take that, like, because I want to be like, well, fuck that general, because that is so rude. Don't
He's
shame
like,
Right?
those men.
the
Those
first
women
It's
are
the
just as
first thing I
misogynistic,
thought
competent.
right?
was we can
Yeah.
kill these. We can kill them. It's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. It's okay if
Yeah.
they explode. It's like, what?
But also, like,
Not
you're
surprised though.
testing new equipment and new things, so you would need someone competent enough that if something goes wrong, they try to save the aircraft, right? So,
Mhm,
like, the fact that they weren't acknowledging the skill that it takes to be in that environment repetitively is
mhm.
is atrocious. I mean,
Yeah, I feel like it was done with a little bit of malice, but I think that it was done to the right crew because they were like, we're not trying to
yeah,
die today, guys.
Mhm.
yeah,
I'm trying to live. Yeah, they sound like the most phenomenal people. Like I would want to hang out with them.
a hundred, a
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, I think that's one of the cool things. So, like the professor that I worked with, she really got to know these ladies from interviewing them and doing oral histories to write a book. I always recommend books. I can plug her book. Her name is Katherine Landdeck, and the book that she wrote is called The Women with Silver Wings: The Inspiring True Story of the Women Air Force Service Pilots in World War II.
Wait,
And
that's
that,
her? I have that
yeah.
on Libby.
Oh, you have it? Yeah,
Yeah,
she
I
was
was
one of
like,
my
it's one of the ones.
professors in undergrad at Texas Woman's University.
Yeah. No,
That's
that was one
cool.
of the books that I mean, I didn't get to read it, but it was one of the ones that I checked out. I'll have to listen to it now because they have that
Yeah,
it's the audiobook.
because yeah, that's cool. I haven't read it either. I know she published it because I'm friends with her on Facebook and saw that she put it out because when I was a student, she was like, I'm working on this book. And we were like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like, I don't know anything about writing a book, like how you do that. And she was working on it when I was a student in like 2007, 2008, 2006. So she published it in 2020. So it took her a while to like get it together. But she interviewed a lot of these women who were in this program, and like a lot of them went on to become like some of them still continued flying, but then a lot of others, like did the thing that a lot of women did where you like go back into the home and you're just kind of like, oh, that was like a wild chapter in my life, and now I'm gonna like do this domestic thing, like and try to have a family and stuff like that. Um, but it took them a long time to get recognition for like their service and to be counted as military veterans. And what is it? In 2009, they were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal for like service and military combat and stuff like that. So the women that were still alive like finally got that recognition like not even that long ago, like 10, 15, maybe a little longer than that now, 20 something years ago.
The women that were still alive. We
Exactly.
couldn't think about, maybe we should recognize these phenomenal women for their sacrifices that they have made to the country, for our safety, for everything that they have done, for the safety of the pilots who didn't want to get in the plane.
Hmm.
It was until the 2009 or the 2000s. That's way too, no.
Oh yeah. Well, it's like Fred Korematsu was the guy who he was one of the Japanese Americans who was interned in the internment camps, and he sued in the 1940s, and his case went to the Supreme Court, and he lost, right? He lost this case to basically where they were like, he argued that it was unconstitutional, like as a citizen, to be held in a concentration camp, and the Supreme Court was like, no, wartime, this is necessary. In 1944, it wasn't until I think Bill Clinton in the 90s gave him like the Congressional Medal of Freedom or something like that. He didn't get it until like almost 60 years later,
I mean, in order to give anything back, you have to acknowledge that you did something wrong.
right?
Mm, damn.
So that's pretty much what I have. I just thought it was, they're really cool, and it's a group of women that we don't normally think about. You see Rosie the Riveter posters, and you're like, you sometimes like if you're in a good class, you talk about how like women had all these other opportunities in the war and got to do new and different things. And like I'm sure there's probably really interesting stories about the women who worked in factories and built tanks and stuff like that, and just like what their lives were like. You know, I've never dug into that, but like I imagine that's interesting. And for like a group of these women, they really wanted to fly airplanes and went and, made a life doing that and got to have a bunch of cool adventures and do a bunch of really cool stuff.
No, yeah, it's really ex inspiring. Because I had never really heard much about them. So now I'm like very excited to read that book
Hmm.
and I want to
Again,
know.
like I said to Karina earlier, there was so much that I was finding when I was just researching what I wanted to do for this episode. I was like, I tell you what, there are so many interesting stories that we just don't learn about. It was a wild time. There was a lot happening. A lot happening.
Yeah, I feel like everything is more nuanced and like more detailed and more complex than we really know about. And the more you look, the more gray everything is. I think that's why I like stories though. I want to know what's out there. The more I learn, the safer I feel. I don't know how true that is, but I have the Delulu.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah, that's why we're here to share share our knowledge. Okay, but I think with that, that's where we're going to end our episode for today with now that we have gifted you our knowledge for the 2026 year. This was what World War II was like. But thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Sip and Saga Society. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to support our historical endeavors, please visit our website at sipandsaga.online, where we also have merch and now a book club. Yay. All the information is on there if you do decide to come read with us. We have a lot of book recommendations, and those will be posted on there as well. I'm working on a Discord server, is what they're called. I'm still working on figuring it out, but please bear with me. But thank you so much, guys, for joining us with this episode. And thank you, Greg and Randy, for joining me today on the episode. There's a lot of changes coming in 2026, but I'm so grateful to have our listeners and have all of my fun friends to join me. Yay.
Toodles.
Bye. Greg said bye.
Yeah.